The clock on the lab wall showed 2:17 a.m. Olivia Mason rubbed her tired eyes but refused to stop working. She was close to a breakthrough, and she knew it. The hum of machines filled the empty laboratory at the Hawthorne Research Facility. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. Just a few more adjustments, she muttered to herself, typing commands into her computer. The quantum stabilizer glowed with blue light as it processed her calculations. Olivia had been working on this project for 5 years. If she was right, her experiment would prove that other dimensions existed alongside our own, not just in theory, but in ways humans could actually measure and maybe someday reach. She took a sip of cold coffee and grimaced. The cup had been sitting there since midnight, but caffeine was caffeine. She needed to stay alert. The stabilizer hummed louder as power flowed through it. Olivia checked the readings and smiled. Perfect. Everything was exactly where it needed to be. Final sequence beginning, she said into her recorder. Quantum field alignment at 97%. Power levels optimal. She pressed the button to start, the final stage of the experiment. The blue light from the stabilizer grew brighter. The air in the center of the lab seemed to shimmer, like the heat waves above hot asphalt in summer. Olivia held her breath. This was it. Years of work, all coming down to this moment. Then the alarm began to blare. Red lights flashed on the walls. The security system had detected something unusual. Olivia looked at her instruments in panic. Had something gone wrong? But her readings were still perfect. The experiment was working exactly as planned. So what had triggered the alarm? The shimmering air in the middle of the lab suddenly twisted. It spun faster and faster until it formed a perfect circle of light, like a doorway made of pure energy. Olivia grabbed the edge of her desk. This wasn't part of her experiment. Something else was happening. The circle of light grew larger. Inside it, colors swirled that Olivia had never seen before. Colors that shouldn't exist in our world. And then something began to come through. It started as a point of intense brightness. Then it expanded, taking shape as it entered the lab. The shape was vaguely human-like but made entirely of glowing, shifting energy. It towered nearly to the ceiling, at least 9 feet tall. Its body pulsed with power. Olivia should have been terrified. Any normal person would have run screaming from the room. But Olivia wasn't normal. She was a scientist, first and foremost. And right now her experiment was at a critical stage. The glowing figure raised what appeared to be arms. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. I am Zoranthus, eternal watcher of the cosmos, guardian of 1,000 realities. I have crossed the void between dimensions to judge the worthiness of this world. The being paused, clearly expecting some reaction. Perhaps fear, or awe, or worship. Instead, Olivia glanced up from her computer, held up one finger, and said, Take a number. I'll be with you in 20 minutes. She immediately turned back to her work, continuing to type commands and check readings. The quantum field was starting to destabilize. If she didn't maintain it now, 5 years of research would be lost. The glowing entity, Zoranthus, stood frozen in apparent shock. It flickered slightly like a candle in a breeze. Mortal, do you comprehend who addresses you? I heard you the first time. Olivia interrupted without looking up. God, watcher, guardian, judge. Got it. But this quantum field will collapse if I don't stabilize it right now, and I'm not losing 5 years of work. So please just wait. The alarm continued to blare as Olivia worked frantically to save her experiment. And in the center of the lab, a being with the power to destroy worlds stood waiting, completely ignored by the one human who should have been most impressed by its arrival. Zoranthus had visited 1,000 worlds across countless dimensions. On every world, the beings there had fallen to their knees in wonder or run in terror. Never had anyone simply asked him to wait. The cosmic entity's light flickered as it watched Olivia work. Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard as she muttered numbers under her breath. The machines around her hummed and beeped. She seemed to have completely forgotten about the godlike being standing in her lab. After several minutes, the lab door burst open. A man in a rumpled shirt and jeans rushed in, his eyes wide with panic. Olivia, the security system went crazy and I saw the energy spike on the monitors. What's happening with the... The man stopped mid-sentence, his mouth hanging open as he noticed the glowing figure. Oh, he said in a small voice. Oh my. Hey, Alan, Olivia said without looking up. Yeah, we have a visitor. Says it's some kind of cosmic god or whatever. I told it to wait until I finish stabilizing the quantum field. Alan Prescott stared at the towering being of light, then at Olivia, then back at the being. He swallowed. Hard. You told a god to wait? 15 more minutes tops, Olivia said, still focused on her work. Alan stepped carefully around the glowing entity, keeping his back to the wall. When he reached Olivia, he leaned close and whispered, That's a literal deity in our lab and you're ignoring it? I'm not ignoring it. I'm prioritizing. This experiment won't wait, but apparently gods can. Zoranthus moved closer, its form rippling with what might have been annoyance. I have traveled across the void between realities. I bring knowledge. Beyond your comprehension, planets have been destroyed for showing less disrespect than this. Alan paled and stepped back, but Olivia just nodded and continued typing. Sounds impressive. If you could avoid destroying this planet until after I save my data, that would be great. Alan looked like he might faint. He gripped the edge of a nearby desk for support. Maybe, he suggested weakly. We should be a bit more, respectful? Zoranthus turned toward Alan, sensing a more appropriate reaction at last. Yes, mortal. Fear and reverence are proper responses to my presence. Alan swallowed hard again. Then he straightened his shoulders and took a deep breath. Would you like some coffee while you wait? The lab fell silent except for the tapping of Olivia's keyboard. Zoranthus's glow pulsed rapidly, like a heartbeat, speeding up. Coffee? You offer me coffee? It's fresh, Alan said. Well, fresher than Olivia's anyway. I just made it in the break room. Zoranthus looked at the small human, then at Olivia, who was still working, then back at Alan. I do not require your earth beverages. Right. Of course. Just trying to be polite. Alan gestured awkwardly to a chair. Would you like to sit down at least? The cosmic entity stared at the ordinary office chair, clearly baffled by the mundane offer. I do not sit. Fair enough. Alan, not knowing what else to do, pulled out his tablet and began taking notes. If a god was visiting their lab, they should at least document it properly. He snapped a few photos and started typing a description of Zoranthus. The god watched this strange behavior with growing confusion. These humans were not cowering. They were not begging for mercy or offering sacrifices. One was ignoring him completely, and the other was treating him like a guest who had shown up early for dinner. Finally, exactly 20 minutes after Zoranthus had arrived, Olivia pressed a final key and sighed with relief. There, field stabilized, data saved. She spun her chair around, removed her safety glasses, and looked directly at the cosmic entity for the first time. Now, she said, extending her hand as if for a handshake, I'm Dr. Olivia Mason. You said your name is Zoranthus? You mentioned something about judging our world? Let's talk about that. Zoranthus looked at Olivia's extended hand with what seemed like confusion. After a moment, the glowing figure shrank slightly, now only 7 feet tall instead of 9. This apparently was its way of being polite. Your customs are strange, human, the entity said, its voice a bit quieter than before. I have come to evaluate your world for potential membership in the Cosmic Collective. Olivia lowered her unshaken hand and raised an eyebrow. The Cosmic Collective? What's that exactly? It is the gathering of worthy civilizations under my protection and guidance. Those who qualify receive knowledge, power, and safety from the dangers that lurk between the stars. Alan, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up excitedly. Like an intergalactic United Nations? Zoranthus turned to him. Your simple comparison is not entirely incorrect. Olivia crossed her arms. And who decides if we're worthy? You? I am Zoranthus, keeper of the eternal flame, guardian of... Yes, we covered that part. Olivia interrupted. But what are your criteria? How do you judge? Worthiness? The cosmic entity seemed taken aback by her direct questions. In all its centuries of evaluating worlds, no one had ever asked about its methods. I shall demonstrate my power, so you understand who judges you. Xeranthus raised a glowing arm. The air around it shimmered. Suddenly, one of the lab computers transformed. The metal and plastic melted and reshaped into a strange crystal structure that hovered above the desk, pulsing with inner light. Alan gasped. Olivia stepped closer to the transformed object, her eyes wide with interest. Did you just convert our computer into some kind of exotic matter? She asked, pulling out her phone to take readings. The energy required for that transformation would be enormous. How did you manage the conversion without a massive release of heat? Xeranthus's glow flickered. This was not the reaction it expected. Your primitive technology is nothing. I can reshape reality itself. Yes, but how? Olivia pressed. Are you manipulating quantum fields? Accessing extra-dimensional energy? The conservation of matter and energy still applies, doesn't it? Alan had recovered from his shock and was now filming the floating crystal with his tablet. Olivia, this is incredible. The spectrometer app is showing elements that aren't even on our periodic table. Instead of fear or worship, these humans responded with scientific curiosity. Xeranthus had never encountered this reaction before. Your kind is strange, the entity said. Others fall to their knees when I display my power. Olivia shrugged. We're scientists. We see something new, we study it. Speaking of which, she gestured to the crystal. Can you change it back? That computer had 3 months of backup data that I'd rather not lose. If a being made of light could look embarrassed, Xeranthus did. With another wave of its arm, the crystal changed back into a computer, looking exactly as it had before. Thanks, Olivia said. She turned to Alan. Can you call Dr. Rivera? She'll want to see this. On second thought, Xeranthus announced, I shall speak with your leaders, not mere scientists. Olivia laughed. Good luck with that. By the time you get through all the red tape and security clearances, it'll be next year. Besides, scientists are exactly who you want to talk to. We're the ones who'll understand what you're offering. Alan nodded eagerly. We can help translate your proposals into terms our leaders will understand. Think of us as cultural interpreters. Xeranthus considered this. In its vast experience, leaders were often driven by fear or greed. These scientists, despite their oddly casual manner, seemed genuinely interested in understanding. Very well, the entity decided. I shall explain the trials your world must pass to join the cosmic collective. Trials? Olivia and Alan said, at the same time. 3 tests to prove humanity's worth, Xeranthus explained. Fail and your world remains isolated. Succeed, and you join the greatest alliance in all existence. Olivia crossed her arms again. And if we don't want to take your tests? For the first time since its arrival, Xeranthus was completely silent. The lab had grown more crowded since Xeranthus first appeared. Dr. Rivera had arrived, along with 2 security guards and a stern-looking man in a plain black suit who introduced himself only as Major Frank Daniels. Let me get this straight, Major Daniels said after being briefed on the situation. This being wants to test humanity before allowing us to join some cosmic club. Cosmic collective, Xeranthus corrected. The entity had been watching the growing number of humans with increasing interest. None of them cowered or begged. They simply treated its presence as an unusual but manageable situation. And what exactly happens if we refuse these tests? Olivia asked again, bringing the conversation back to her earlier question. Xeranthus's light dimmed slightly. Refusal has never occurred. All worlds seek the benefits of the collective. But hypothetically, Olivia pressed, what would happen? Your world would continue as it is, Xeranthus admitted, isolated, unprotected. Eventually, other cosmic forces would find you. Major Daniels stepped forward. So no immediate consequences for saying no? No destruction? No punishment? I am not a destroyer of worlds, Xeranthus said, sounding almost offended. I am a guardian. Alan, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up. Then we have a choice. We can take the tests or not. So tell us about these tests, Olivia said. What exactly are we being evaluated on? And who decides if we pass or fail? I alone judge, Zoranthus declared. The first test examines your intellectual capacity. The second evaluates your social harmony. The third measures your spiritual depth. Major Daniels frowned. Those sound subjective. We need clear metrics. You question my judgment? Zoranthus's light flickered angrily. We question any evaluation without clear criteria, Olivia said calmly. That's basic scientific method. If you want us to take these tests seriously, we need to understand exactly what you're looking for and how you're measuring it. The godlike being seemed stunned by this response. In all its existence, no civilization had ever negotiated the terms of its testing. And we'll need non-interference guarantees, Major Daniels added. No changing the rules midway through, no hidden tests. And no destroying computers we need, Alan chimed in. Dr. Rivera, who had been silently observing until now, stepped forward with a tablet. I've drawn up a preliminary agreement based on standard research protocols. Would you like to review it? Zoranthus stared at the humans. These small, fragile creatures were treating a cosmic power like a research partner who needed to sign consent forms. This is not how the process works, the entity said. This is exactly how it works on Earth, Olivia replied. If you want to evaluate us, you need to respect our methods too. After what seemed like a long internal struggle, Zoranthus nodded. Its form shrank again, now only about 6 feet tall, almost human-sized. Very well, present your terms. For the next hour, the humans and the cosmic entity negotiated. Major Daniels insisted on safeguards. Dr. Rivera clarified scientific parameters. Alan documented everything. And Olivia, who had first told the god to wait, led the discussion with calm confidence. Finally, they reached an agreement. Zoranthus would present each test clearly. The humans would have reasonable time to respond, and the entity would not interfere once a test began. Now for the first test, Zoranthus announced. The air around it swirled with symbols that no human had ever seen before. They formed complex patterns that seemed to shift and change even as they appeared. This equation represents the fundamental nature of reality across all dimensions. No, civilization has solved it in less than 3 centuries. Solve it and you pass the first test. The patterns hung in the air, glowing with otherworldly light. The humans stared at the impossible complexity of the symbols. Olivia studied them for exactly 1 minute. Then she pulled out her phone. What are you doing? Major Daniels asked. Texting. Dr. Catherine Wells, Olivia replied as she typed. She's better with theoretical math than I am. She hit send, then looked up at Zoranthus. You didn't specify that we couldn't ask for help, right? For the 3rd time that day, a god was left, speechless by a human. By morning, the Hawthorne Research Facility had transformed. The small lab was now the center of global attention. Scientists from around the world joined video calls to see the cosmic equation. Mathematicians worked in shifts, building on each other's progress. Computers ran complex calculations based on their suggestions. Zoranthus watched all this with growing surprise. The entity had expected the humans to work in isolation, struggling alone with concepts beyond their understanding. Instead, they had formed a worldwide team in a matter of hours. Your approach is unusual, the entity said to Olivia. It had stopped speaking in its booming voice, though its words still carried a strange echo. Olivia looked up from her tablet, where she was reviewing the latest calculations from a team in Japan. What do you mean? Most civilizations assign their greatest minds to work in secret, Zoranthus explained. They fear sharing knowledge with rivals. Olivia laughed. We're not competing against each other. We're competing against the problem. Alan brought in coffee for everyone, including a cup that he carefully placed near Zoranthus. The entity still didn't drink it, but seemed to appreciate the gesture. Besides, Alan added, no single person could solve this alone. It's too big, too complex. Dr. Catherine Wells, who had arrived in person after receiving Olivia's text, nodded in agreement. The beauty of human knowledge is that it's collective. I understand parts that Olivia doesn't. She sees connections I miss. Together we see more. Major Daniels had set up a small command center in the corner of the lab. He approached with an update. The word is spreading, not just about the equation, but about our visitor. He nodded toward Zoranthus. Any panic? Olivia asked. Some, Daniels admitted, but less than we expected. People are mostly curious, and they want to help. Help? Zoranthus seemed confused by this concept. Yes, Daniels said. We're getting thousands of emails from ordinary people with ideas. Some are nonsense, but others... He shrugged. Sometimes the best insights come from unexpected places. As if to prove his point, a lab assistant rushed in with a printout. Dr. Wells, a high school teacher from Iowa, noticed something about the third section of the equation. Dr. Wells took the paper and studied it. Her eyes widened. This is brilliant. It connects to what the team in India discovered about the dimensional constants. She hurried to a whiteboard and began writing furiously, combining the new insight with existing work. Others gathered around, building on her progress. Zoranthus moved closer, watching as the humans worked together, sharing ideas, testing theories, encouraging each other when they hit roadblocks. The entity had seen many worlds and many species, but never this kind of effortless cooperation. By noon, they had solved 1/3 of the equation. By dinner, they had cracked 2/3, and at exactly midnight, Dr. Wells wrote the final solution on the main board. I believe that's it, she said, stepping back to review their work. The room fell silent as everyone looked at Zoranthus. The cosmic entity studied the solution carefully, its light pulsing as it checked each step of their logic. Correct, Zoranthus finally announced, its voice briefly returning to its godly volume before quieting again. In one Earth day you have solved what took others centuries. How is this possible? Olivia smiled. We've had practice solving impossible problems. It's kind of our thing. And we had motivation, Alan added. Coffee and pizza delivery. Works every time. Do we pass the first test? Dr. Wells asked. Zoranthus nodded, a surprisingly human gesture from a being made of light. You pass beyond all expectation, but the second test will not be solved with equations and formulas. The test of social harmony requires you to demonstrate that your species can live in peace with itself. Major Daniels frowned. That's a taller order than the math problem. We have wars, Olivia admitted, conflicts, divisions. All thinking beings have conflict, Zoranthus said. The test is not perfection. It is progress. Then how exactly are you measuring this test? Olivia asked. Zoranthus turned to face the entire room. For the next 7 days I will observe your world. I will see how you handle differences, how you resolve disputes, how you treat those unlike yourselves. That's not a test, Major Daniels protested. That's a judgment. Yes, Zoranthus agreed. It is. News of Zoranthus spread across the world despite efforts to keep it quiet. Phone videos from lab workers went viral. Soon every country knew that a cosmic being was judging humanity. For 7 days, Zoranthus traveled the Earth, sometimes visible, as a pillar of light, sometimes hidden but watching. It saw cities and villages, deserts and forests, the richest neighborhoods and the poorest communities. On the 7th day, the entity returned to the Hawthorne facility where Olivia and her team waited anxiously. I have seen your world, Zoranthus said. Its voice was quieter now, almost thoughtful. There is much conflict. We know, Olivia replied. We're working on it. Major Daniels stepped forward. Did we pass or fail? I observed war in 17 regions. Zoranthus continued as if it hadn't heard the question. I saw hatred between groups. I saw suffering caused by some humans against others. The humans in the room looked down. They couldn't deny these truths. But, Zoranthus added, I also saw something unexpected. What's that? Alan asked. Effort. In every conflict zone, I found humans working for peace. In places of hatred, I found humans building bridges. Where there was suffering, I found humans helping strangers. Dr. Wells nodded. That's humanity for you. For every problem, there are people trying to solve it. Not always successfully, Olivia admitted. Success is not what impressed me, Zoranthus said. It was the trying. Many species accept their divisions as natural and permanent. You do not. The entity moved to the center of the room, its light softening. When I said the test was progress, not perfection, I meant it. You have not achieved harmony, but you are actively working toward it. This is rare in the cosmos. Major Daniels raised an eyebrow. So we pass? You pass, Zoranthus confirmed. Though barely. Relief filled the room. 2 tests down, 1 to go, and... The third test, Olivia asked. You mentioned something about spiritual depth. Yes, Zoranthus said. The final test is personal, not global. It involves you specifically, Dr. Mason. Olivia blinked in surprise. Me? Why me? Because you were the first to interact with me. Because you treated a cosmic power as an equal, neither with fear nor with false respect. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Olivia. What do I have to do? She asked quietly. Your life's work has been to understand the barriers between dimensions, Zoranthus said. You were close to a breakthrough when I arrived. Olivia nodded. Yes, that's right. The third test is sacrifice. If you destroy all your research, all your notes, data, and equipment, I will guarantee Earth's protection in the cosmic collective for 1,000 years. Gasps filled the room. Alan stepped forward. That's her entire career. 5 years of work. That's the point of sacrifice, Zoranthus said simply. It must hurt to have meaning. Major Daniels put a hand on Olivia's shoulder. You don't have to do this. We've lived without cosmic protection this long. We can continue. Olivia stared at her computers, her notes, the quantum stabilizer she had built with her own hands. Everything she had worked for was in this lab. How long do I have to decide, she asked. Until sunrise tomorrow, Zoranthus answered. Choose wisely, Dr. Mason. With that, the entity faded from view, though everyone sensed it was still present, watching. Olivia sat down heavily in her chair, running her hands through her hair. What are you going to do? Alan asked gently. Instead of answering, Olivia turned to her computer and began typing rapidly. Olivia, Dr. Wells asked, concerned. I'm backing up the essential theoretical frameworks, Olivia explained without looking up. If I'm going to lose all this, I want to at least remember the core concepts. So you're going to do it? Major Daniels asked. Olivia stopped typing and turned to face her colleagues. No, she said firmly. I'm not. Everyone stared at her in shock. But the protection of Earth, Alan began. Olivia cut him off. That's not a test. That's bullying. And humanity doesn't respond well to bullies, even cosmic ones. The room fell silent after Olivia's declaration. Even the machine seemed to quiet down. Zoranthus reappeared, its light dimmer than before. You refuse the final test? You would deny your world protection? I'm refusing your conditions, Olivia said, standing up. True sacrifice comes from choice, not coercion. What you're asking isn't a test of spiritual depth, it's a demand for submission. The cosmic entity moved closer. Many worlds have made greater sacrifices to join the collective. Good. For them, Olivia replied. But that's not how we do things here. Major Daniels stepped up beside her. Dr. Mason's research might one day protect humanity in ways we can't yet imagine. Destroying it doesn't serve anyone. I am offering guaranteed protection, Zoranthus insisted. At what cost? Olivia asked. Our integrity? Our way of solving problems? The very things that helped us pass your first 2 tests? Alan and Dr. Wells moved to stand with Olivia and Major Daniels, forming a line of humans facing the cosmic power. Here's a counteroffer, Olivia said. I won't destroy my research. Instead, I'll share it with you. Zoranthus flickered in what might have been confusion. Share? Yes. My work on dimensional barriers could help your cosmic collective, couldn't it? We could form a genuine exchange of knowledge instead of this one-sided sacrifice. The entity was silent for a long moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, it began to shrink. The glowing figure decreased until it was exactly human-sized. Its light softened until they could see a more defined shape within it, still made of energy but more person-like than before. In 10,000 years, Zoranthus said, its voice now completely normal. No one has ever refused the sacrifice or offered an alternative. Then maybe it's time to update your tests, Olivia suggested. The cosmic being moved to the window and looked out at the night sky. Your species confuses me. You ignore me when I arrive. You question my methods. You negotiate terms with a cosmic power. You solve an impossible equation through cooperation. You acknowledge your flaws while working to overcome them. And now you refuse a direct command while offering partnership instead. We're complicated, Alan said with a small smile. Zoranthus turned back to face them. There is something I must confess. The humans exchanged glances. There is no cosmic collective, Zoranthus said quietly. What? Several voices exclaimed at once. There was once. My civilization created it long ago. But we evolved beyond physical form. The others transcended to a higher plane of existence. I remained behind, searching. Searching for what? Dr. Wells asked. Worthy companions. I have visited thousands of worlds over many millennia. Some destroyed themselves trying to impress me. Others worshipped me blindly, offering no real companionship. None ever treated me as an equal. The lab fell silent as the humans processed this information. The cosmic god was not testing them for admission to some grand alliance. It was looking for friends. Olivia was the first to understand. You're lonely, she said simply. Zoranthus didn't respond directly, but its light dimmed further. So the tests, the judgment, it was all just to find someone interesting to talk to? Major, Daniels asked, sounding both annoyed and amused. My methods were developed over eons, Zoranthus said defensively. They worked well to identify advanced civilizations. But not good conversation partners, Olivia pointed out. No, the entity admitted. Not until now. Alan set down his tablet and approached the being. You know, if you wanted to make friends, you could have just asked. Would you have believed me? Zoranthus asked. A cosmic entity appearing in your lab and requesting friendship? The humans looked at each other and then burst into laughter. Even Major Daniels cracked a smile. Fair point, Olivia conceded. But, moving forward, let's try honesty instead of tests. That's how real relationships work. Relationships, Zoranthus repeated the word as if testing its meaning. Is that what you're offering? Well, Olivia said, everyone needs friends. Even gods, I guess. 3 months had passed since a god appeared in Olivia's lab. The Hawthorne Research Facility had changed dramatically. A new wing had been built specifically for what the government now called extra-universal studies. Security was tight, but the atmosphere was surprisingly relaxed. Olivia sat at her desk reviewing data from her latest experiment. The quantum stabilizer hummed quietly in the background, much improved since Zoranthus had shared some basic principles of dimensional engineering. Your calculations are off by a small factor, said a gentle voice beside her. Olivia looked up to see Zoranthus. The entity no longer appeared as a towering pillar of light. Instead, it had adopted a more human-sized form that glowed softly, like a lamp with a dimmer switch turned to low. Show me, Olivia said without hesitation. The entity pointed to a figure on her screen. The quantum variance should account for temporal shift at the subatomic level. Olivia made the adjustment and smiled as the numbers fell into place. Thanks. I would have caught that eventually. Of course you would have, Zoranthus agreed. Your species is remarkably persistent. Alan walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Olivia and placed the other on the desk near Xeranthus. This had become their daily ritual, even though the entity didn't drink. "How's the dimensional mapping going?" Alan asked. "We've identified 17 distinct realities that overlap with ours," Olivia said. "Though Xeranthus says there are thousands more." "Millions," the entity corrected. "But these 17 are most compatible with your form of matter." Major Daniels entered the lab, now wearing civilian clothes instead of his uniform. After the initial weeks of military supervision, he had requested a transfer to become the official liaison between the government and what the president had called our cosmic visitor. The UN Security Council approved the exchange program, Daniels announced. 5 scientists from different countries will join our team next month. Olivia nodded with satisfaction. She had insisted that knowledge from Xeranthus should be shared globally, not hoarded by any single nation. After some debate, world leaders had agreed. "They're still arguing about what to call our partnership," Daniels added with a small smile. "Someone suggested the Cosmic Collective as a joke, but it might stick." Xeranthus's light flickered in what they now recognized as amusement. "A fitting name, though not what I originally described. Better to build something real than chase a fantasy," Olivia said. The entity moved to the window, looking out at the mountains in the distance. "In all my travels, I never expected to find what I sought on such a young world, with beings so physically fragile." "We make up for it by being stubborn," Alan said, "and by sharing coffee with space gods," Olivia added with a grin. Xeranthus turned back to face them. "Your irreverence continues to surprise me. Most beings would have built temples by now. We're too busy building understanding," Dr. Wells said as she entered the lab. She handed Olivia a tablet with new data. "The theory you and Xeranthus developed has applications in medicine we never imagined. Early tests show we might be able to repair damaged neural tissue." This was what made the partnership work, Olivia thought. Xeranthus shared cosmic knowledge, but humans found practical ways to apply it. The entity offered perspective from millions of years of existence, while humans provided fresh approaches to old problems. "Will you stay?" Olivia asked suddenly, looking at Xeranthus. "Once we've learned all you can teach us?" The entity was quiet for a moment. "There are other worlds to visit, but none where I've been told to take a number and wait my turn." Everyone laughed, including Xeranthus, whose form rippled with light. "I think I will stay," the entity said. "At least for your lifetime, Dr. Mason, and perhaps beyond. Your children's children may prove equally interesting. Just remember," Olivia said with a smile, "if I'm in the middle of an experiment, you'll still have to wait your turn, God or not." "I would expect nothing less," Xeranthus replied. "That is why I chose to stay." Outside the window, the sun was setting, casting golden light across the facility where a human had once told a god to wait, and in doing so, had given that god something it had sought across the cosmos. Not worship or fear, but simple, honest friendship.